He kept saying the same line like a magic spell. We're reinvesting. He would stretch out the word, smile at me, pat the stack of invoices like they were pets, and say it again, reinvesting. When I'd look at the bank app and feel my stomach drop, he'd tap the screen, tilt his head, and say, relax. It's called cash flow. We're reinvesting. We started the shop with a couple of used machines, a small loan in my name, and a room that smelled like ink and warm plastic. I slept on a futon in the back the first few months, which turned into more than a few months because I was always there. It was prints and orders and screens and cleaning and pushing until my arms shook. We did shirts for schools, for the dog rescue down the road, for a chain gym that never paid on time. I learned to eat at the press, chewing a cold egg sandwich with ink under my nails. He was charming. He could sell ice to a freezer. He had that voice, the smooth one, the one that says your name like it's a promise. He would pour coffee lean in and customers would laugh at his dumb little jokes. He would send emails with way too many exclamation marks and they always wrote back, "We love your energy." I did not have energy. I had wrists that hurt and a neck that cracked when I turned it. He had a car with a sunroof. I had a bike with one working brake. He said that money didn't matter, yet not at this stage. He said grown-up stuff like margins and net. Something. He said, we have to scale. And when I'd say, what about rent, what about you told me we'd split it, what about groceries, he'd smile and say, reinvest. He also said it's all in the paperwork. But the paperwork was a shared folder he controlled, and he loved to say, I'll give you login later. When later came, he'd say, let's wait till the site migration is done, like we had a site migration. I knew it was dumb to say I trusted him, but I did. He bought me coffee. He told people I was the best at detail. He introduced me as the heartbeat. That felt nice after years of being the person in my family who had to fix things and got no thanks. I thought this time would be different. Silly me. This is the part where I explain who I am at home. You overworked, can you pick up a second shift? Can you help your sister move? Can you take mom to the doctor person? The one who gets the text. Sorry to ask, but can you cover rent for a month? I say yes so much that it feels like the only word I've got. When he said, let's do this together, I heard a break. I heard someone finally carrying weight beside me. I heard the thing I needed, a partner. I clung to that word like a child to a blanket. Then he got engaged. It started as small hints. He brought her by the shop to show her our baby, which made me laugh because he never cleaned the press. She took pictures on her phone. She was pretty and nervous and had a laugh like a bell. I liked her. She had this big ring. I caught myself staring at it while she shook her hair like she was in a shampoo commercial, and I remember thinking, that's not a small rock for two people reinvesting. He told me the wedding would be simple. He said backyard family-style mason jars. He said, I'm not that guy. He rolled his eyes at big weddings. He said, waste of money, we are practical. He said it plainly like a promise. I kept printing shirts. I kept sleeping badly. I kept sharing a kitchen with roaches that had the nerve to act like owners. Every time we landed a new client, he would say, this is the one. We'll be able to take a draw. Then the money would come in and the next day it would go out again to what he called upgrades. He would stand over me and point at the catalog, that dryer is everything, that conveyor is life, that press will cut our time in half. And then, nothing would show up. He would say backorder, he would say supply chain, he would make a face like a sad cartoon and say global issues like he was deeply affected. Meanwhile, he started wearing this leather watch. He said his uncle gave it to him. He started putting on nicer shoes. He said he found them at a resale store. He had a new laptop. He said it was refurbished. I kept nodding, because when you are the person who always works, you also become the person who talks yourself out of seeing things. I did that. I looked away. He started to leave early for meetings. He decided Thursdays were for networking nights. Mondays were planning days. I was there, always there. My clothes smelled like a mix of sweat and chemicals. I joked that deodorant didn't stand a chance against ink. He laughed too loud and clapped me on the shoulder. You're a machine, he said. I didn't want to be a machine. I wanted a nap. One morning, I came in to find a stack of sample wedding invitations on the front table. I looked at the fonts, I touched the paper, I smiled because they were pretty. I thought maybe we're doing his invites as a gift. Maybe that's nice. He came in, grabbed them fast, said, not for clients. He flushed, not pale, but pink and guilty. He shoved the samples into his bag and changed the subject so hard it snapped. Have you emailed the gym? He asked. Okay. I had this itch in my brain after that. It was like a mosquito bite you keep scratching until it bleeds. The bank app didn't make sense. We'd had a big month. The deposit from the school district landed. I should have been able to breathe. I asked him about a draw. He did the speech again. We're so close. And he touched his temple like he had a headache. He reminded me about the magical dryer that was definitely coming. It's already paid, he said, patting his pocket like the receipt was in there. We got a call from a supplier asking why a check bounced. I felt heat crawl up my neck. He took the call into the alley and came back in with this smooth face that I hated. They had our account number wrong, he said, flipping his hands like, what can you do? I thought about the nights I counted pennies to make sure my mom had enough for her meds. I thought about the way he wore that watch, so I did it. I finally asked for the login. No smile this time. I said, I need to see it. He laughed like I was being cute, not mad. He said, "You don't like numbers." I said, "I like not drowning." And he looked at me like I was overreacting again and said, "You don't trust me." I looked at the floor and I said, "I trust, but I verify." He clicked around on his laptop, then he spun it toward me with a flourish like he was doing a magic trick like ta-da. It wasn't the bank. It was a spreadsheet he made, pretty colors, rounded corners. He said, "This is cleaner." I think I laughed. It was a weird sound like it got stuck in my throat. I didn't say anything. I waited until he went to lunch and I used my phone to call the bank. They asked me questions. I had to put them on speaker and rummage for the card. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. The woman on the phone was gentle. She talked like she had a baby sleeping next to her she did not want awake. I gave her the account number, the real one, the one that my name was on. She pulled it up. She said, "Okay, what do you need?" I said, "Activity." She hesitated. She asked, "Do you have access online?" I said, "Not right now." She read line items in the same soft voice: a charge to Bella Flora Co., a charge to Cedar Ridge Events, a big one to something called the Grand Linden, a string of smaller ones to Tux Places, a bakery, a DJ with a cheesy name. The descriptions felt like punches. I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. It was like the room drifted. The lights buzzed. The ink smell turned sour. I asked her to read them again. The words were plain, but they felt like knives. I knew those names. Those were wedding people, not equipment, not reinvesting, dresses, venues, flowers, cake, music. Every lie came back like a loop of bad radio. It's a business expense. It's marketing. It's a client event. I hung up and I stared at the clock. The second hand moved and I heard it. Click, click, click. It was the only sound. He came back from lunch with a smoothie and a grin. He said, "We got an inquiry from a brewery." He put the smoothie down on a stack of shirts. It tipped purple, went everywhere, and he laughed like it was a joke and not a stain. He said, "Oops, my bad." I said so calm I scared myself. "We need to talk." I told him what I saw. I used simple words. I said, "Our money is paying for your wedding." He did not even blink. He went right to the playbook. "Wow," he said, dragging it out. "Wow, okay, you don't understand." He put his hands up like he was calming a horse. "Relax," he said. "This is exposure. This is networking. We're getting vendor discounts. They're going to shout us out. You can't buy this kind of press." I said, "Bella Flora isn't a client." He said, "They will be. They were impressed by my pitch." I said, "We paid your venue." He said, "We're printing for them. I was just securing the relationship." I said, "The deposit says deposit for wedding in the memo." He shrugged and picked up a rag to wipe the smoothie. He said, "You're being very aggressive right now." He called his fiancée on speaker without warning. He said, "We're having a situation. Can you explain to her?" And he said her like I was a stranger in a store. His fiancée came on and her voice was sugar but sharp. "What's the problem?" she asked. He said, "She thinks we're stealing." His fiancée laughed. "Oh my God," she said, long and breathy. "That is so dramatic. You're being so dramatic." Then she said, "This is all for the brand. Baby, tell her about the influencer list for the wedding, the followers, the content. We're going to tag the shop. This is a business event." I said, "I'm not a content prop." She said, "Well, okay, but like you could have asked. This is embarrassing." And then she hung up. He smirked like he'd won. He said, "See." I stood very still because if I moved, I would throw something. He put a hand on my shoulder again like he owned it. "I know this is hard for you," he said in a tone people use with toddlers, "but trust me. People talk about rage like fire. Mine was cold. It was ice." I picked up my phone and I called the bank again in front of him. He started to say my name. I held up my hand. The bank lady wasn't there, but another person was, and he did not sound gentle. He sounded like a person who did not get paid enough to deal with my level of panic. He asked me questions again. I answered, and while I did, my partner paced and hissed and yelled things like, "You're making a scene, and we talked about this, and you're going to ruin everything." I asked the bank man how to lock the account. He asked why. I said fraud. And for the first time, my partner's face changed. He dropped the smoothie cup. It hit the floor, purple splash. He said, "Don't use that word." I looked him right in the eyes. Fraud. He reached for my phone. I stepped back. He whispered, "Are you serious?" I said, "Dead serious." It got ugly. He did the things you do when you're guilty and scared. He started to cry a little tears that didn't go anywhere. He said I was going to pay it back. He said, "We're family." He said, "I did this for us." He said, "You know my parents aren't helping." He said, "Her family has expectations." He said, "I just didn't want it to be cheap." He said, "I always had the intention, like intention is a word that erases a check." I said, "My mom sometimes eats soup out of a can so she can pay her bills, and you paid $10,000 to a venue with my name on the account." He rolled his eyes at my mom like caring for someone besides yourself is dumb. He said, "You always bring that up." I guess because it's true, and it still didn't stop him. The bank man put a hold on the account after a lot of verification. The room felt stiff. My partner said, "This is insane. You didn't have to go nuclear." I said, "You didn't have to steal." He left. He slammed the door so hard a box fell. Shirts hit the floor. I looked around like maybe there'd be a sign from above, but there was just mess and a smoothie stain that looked like a bruise. I sat on the floor and started calling the vendors. I called the flower company. I said, "Hey, I'm calling about this charge. I'm the co-owner. I need to know what it was for." The woman was kind. She said the peonies are stunning this season. My throat felt tight. I said, is there any way to reverse it? She said there was a cancellation fee. She said she hoped everything was okay. I said it's not. I called the venue. The woman was not kind. She had a voice that said she has dealt with every kind of panic and she does not care. Non-refundable, she said. I hung up before I cried. I texted my sister. I said, if I blow up my life at work, will you still love me? She sent back 1,000,000 heart emojis and then do it. My phone buzzed with his texts, a wall of them. You're overreacting. We need to talk. You're putting me in a bad spot. Please, you're ruining my wedding. Please, please, please. I'll fix it. I'll pay you back. You owe me. After everything I've done, you wouldn't have a business without me, and then you're so ungrateful. The switch from begging to attack was fast. A flip of a switch. When I say I was always the one who let it slide, I was. In my family and old jobs with old friends, it's fine, I would say don't worry while I cleaned up whatever they dropped. But something in me was done being the floor. I called a lawyer a friend recommended. He had a bored voice. He heard me out. Then he stopped being bored. He said, okay, he breached. Don't talk to him alone. We're going to send a letter. The word we felt like a life raft. I changed the passwords to the email, to the order system, to the socials. I took the petty joy of removing his admin role like flipping a tiny mean switch. I put a note on the shop door that said closed for inventory. People knocked and then left. My hands were steadier by then. I pulled out the paper files. I had the ones he didn't control and I started stacking them. I looked line by line. I circled things like a teacher. I said out loud to the empty room, you're such an idiot, but I wasn't talking to me. I was talking to the squid of a person who thought he could hide a wedding in our books and I would never notice. His fiancée came to the shop the next day with her mother. They smelled like perfume and a kind of fake lemon. They walked in like they owned the floor. The mother had her chin lifted so high she looked at everything with her nose. The fiancé said, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I said the wrong foot is when you step in dog crap. This is something else. She pouted like that would help. The mother said, honey, this tone is not helpful. I laughed because tone is something people say when they're called out and don't have a good answer. The fiancé said, we are offering you a chance to participate in something big. This is exposure you cannot pay for. I said, I don't want exposure, I want rent. Then they did the thing where they pretended they cared. The mother said we can do a payment plan. Like they were the generous ones. I told them the account was frozen. I told them there was a lawyer. The mother's mouth tightened. The fiancé turned white, then red. She said, you're making him sick with stress. He threw up this morning. I said, good. And then I said, get out. It came out low and firm. They left with a lot of flouncy hair flipping. The bell over the door made a little cheerful sound like it didn't understand anything. The letter went out. I sat in the shop waiting. He sent long emails about our journey. He wrote, we built this together. He wrote, please don't do this. He wrote, think about the memories. He wrote, this is salvageable. Then he wrote, you will regret crossing me. That one made me smile a little, the switch again. He was nothing if not a pattern. People started to hear, our clients, our friends. He told them I was crazy. He told them I was jealous of his wedding. Yes, jealous. He told them I hated his fiancée. He told them I had a crush on him that made me laugh out loud in the empty room where I kept breathing through a knot in my throat. He told them I was unstable. He told them whatever would make me small. He wanted to turn me into a story, the difficult woman, the ungrateful partner, the one with a chip on her shoulder. But then I called one client to explain the pause on their order, and the woman said he tried to hit us up for a sponsorship for his wedding, said it would be a collab. We thought it was weird. Another client said he asked for a friends and family rate on shirts for his groomsmen. He said it was a write-off. The puzzle pieces slid in line so quickly it made a picture that was ugly and clear. It wasn't one mistake. It was a plan shaped like entitlement, like if a person looks at a small business and sees a piggy bank. The lawyer came back with more calm. He said, we'll file to dissolve the partnership and seek damages. Those words were big, but the meaning was simple. He did wrong. Pay it back. When the paperwork went to his side, they panicked. They called me mean names. They tried to spin. When that didn't work, they made a settlement offer, small and insulting. The lawyer said no. He said it with pleasure. In the middle of all this, my mom called and asked if I was eating. I said, kinda. She sighed that mom sigh and said, I'm making soup. Come get some. I cried in the car while holding a container of chicken soup like a child with a gold trophy. My sister sent me memes that said things like, yeet him into the sun, which was what I needed, dumb, bright, loyal. On what would have been delivery day for his wedding suits, I got a hold placed on that charge. The guy at the suit place tried to argue, but I had the bank behind me. They hung on to the suits. The flower charge was not coming back. The venue, that ship sank, but the giant DJ charge flagged and held. The bakery, half back. The way the little winds felt like breath after being held under too long. He cornered me once in the shop parking lot. He had eyes like a wet cat. He reached for my arm. My body went ice again. I said, don't touch me. He stopped. He tried to smile. We can fix this, he said. He said, we're stronger together. He said, you aren't built to do this alone. That one got me because that is the voice in my head always, you need help, you can't, you aren't enough. I listened and then I said, "Watch me." His face crumpled in a new way, not the fake tears, but this hurt that came from the center because I wasn't playing my role. I wasn't the soft landing. He left spitting curses. He said I was cruel. He said I had no heart. He said I was twisted, which is funny because I had a heart too big for too long. The settlement landed thicker the next time. He would pay me back a chunk. He would sign over his part of the business. He would go away. The lawyer said, "Take it." I did. Would it fix the hole? No. Would it confirm that I wasn't crazy? Yes. Papers were signed. He posted a long caption on his wedding account about letting go of negativity and learning through pain. He did a photo dump of engagement pictures. In the comments, people wrote, "You deserve happiness." I turned off my phone and mopped the smoothie stain finally. Here is the part where I tell you what I did next. I cleaned the shop. I threw away so much junk I wondered how we ever worked. I took a real draw, a small one, but I bought actual groceries and not just ramen. I hired a part-time kid who shows up and wipes down the presses without being asked. I sent an email to every client with a plain explanation. We had a partner change. We are stable. We appreciate you. If anyone wanted drama, they didn't get it from me. They got prints delivered on time and a little note that said, "Thank you." I sleep in my own bed now. The roaches can pay their own rent. I still have days I run from the press to the phone and back until my legs ache, but the dread is different. It's honest work dread, not the dread of knowing someone is lying to you and you're too tired to fight. I put a small sign above my desk that says, "Trust but verify." It makes me laugh and also reminds me of the bank lady's soft voice saying, "Bella Flora Co." In my ear like a spell that broke the spell. They got married, I think. I didn't check, but I heard via a cousin of a friend that they did it in a barn with twinkle lights and a giant neon sign of their initials because, of course. They took pictures in a field. Good for them. I hope their photographer hogged the cake and the DJ played the cheesiest song too loud. I hope the flowers wilted by the end of the night. That's mean. Whatever, I'm allowed. People ask me if I regret anything. I regret not looking sooner. I regret thinking being nice was the same thing as being kind. It's not. Nice is soft words while someone grabs your wallet. Kind is firm boundaries. I learned how to be kind to me. I learned that if someone says, "Trust me," and then takes away your access to your own money, what they mean is, "Let me do whatever I want while you pick up the pieces." I'm not a picker-upper anymore, not for him, not for anyone. I also learned that when someone says they are reinvesting, ask for receipts. Real ones, not a spreadsheet with pretty colors. Ask where the dryer is. Ask where the conveyor is. If he points to his ring and calls it branding, run. If you need me to say it plain, I was right. I wasn't crazy, he was stealing. He dressed it up in business words and Instagram captions, but it was the same old grab. And when I said no, he called me dramatic and difficult and jealous, the words men use when women say no. I stood anyway. It was messy and loud, and it made people mad, and I did it anyway. That's my little victory, small but mine. I go to my mom's place on Sundays now with soup, and we sit on her couch, and she says, "You look tired." And I say, "I am," and she pats my hand and says, "But you look lighter." I do. The presses hum. The ink smells like work, not like secrets. I count the money at night and it adds up to exactly what it should. No flowers, no DJ, no neon signs. Just shirts stacked high and a floor that is finally mine.